Hey guys, Adrienne Green here, and today I wanted to speak with you about real estate differences between Chattanooga and other areas of the country. So today I'm going to walk through common differences that my buyers who live in other parts of the country observe when they're looking at the Chattanooga market versus what they're used to in their hometown markets. And what I'm going to specifically touch on is the architecture styles that we see here, the construction methods and materials that we tend to have in this area, topography and weather considerations that affect the architecture and the real estate here. And then I'm also going to hit on HOAs because that's a question I get asked about a lot. So if you are looking to build wealth through real estate in the Chattanooga area, I hope this video is helpful to you, and make sure to watch other videos on my channel as well to build your knowledge, and reach out if you have any questions. So diving right in here, first let's talk about the architecture here that we see in the Chattanooga area. There is a diverse number of house styles that we see here. And overall, I would say the architecture here is more similar to what you'll see out west. We have a lot of one-level ranches in particular. So things with a bigger footprint and not building up because land is historically or traditionally cheaper here than you might find in some other areas. And weather is a consideration as well. We don't need to build these really compact things to consider harsh winter elements. We also have a lot of mid-century modern architecture out here. And if you're looking at the Chattanooga market and you're looking from from being from the Northeast or the Mid-Atlantic, you're not going to see nearly as many colonial houses. They're relatively uncommon here. You're not going to see those salt box houses with those long roofs. And again, we'll talk about how climate plays into part here, but we're going to see a lot of flatter roof lines than those of you from snowy climates are used to seeing. I have a friend here from Ohio, and he says these flat roofs still kind of freak him out because he's used to, like, oh no, that's going to be an issue with snow. It's not here. Also, when you're looking at the architecture here, my clients are buying houses as old as 90 years old, all the way up to relatively new construction. So some of the diversity that we see in the architecture and house styles is coming from these different time periods that houses have been built from here. And so that's something to keep in mind. Now, construction, how are houses built here? Most of our houses are built on a crawl space. That's what we see the most. Occasionally, we see houses that are built on a slab, and rarely we see houses that are built with a basement, but majority of the time you're going to see a crawl space. When we see the basement most often is in a split level from, around the 60s, 70s. We do have a notable minority of those split level houses, and that's where I usually am seeing a basement. The other thing I would mention is that, a lot of houses here are stick-built houses, right? Wood framing construction. We're not seeing concrete block houses like you might see if you're looking in the Florida market. The other thing along those lines, we do have this little minority of prefab or modular homes here that will look a lot like a stick-built home, but in the tax record, at least for the Tennessee side, it will say that it is a prefab and not a site-built home. So that is something that can kind of, people won't notice that when they first look at it. I haven't had it happen a lot where, people send me something and they're like, how's this look? And I'm like, well, it looks good, but just so you know, it's a manufactured home. And they didn't realize that. So keep in mind, manufactured homes can look like site-built homes here. So keep an eye out for that. All right, and then the topography. Chattanooga has a mix of topography. In some parts of the city, it's pretty flat, not much to speak about. But then we do have some hilly areas that can be quite steep. And when I have clients looking at those hilly areas, we just want to be aware of the fact that, Chattanooga does get a lot of rain. So we want to say, how is the water flowing here? Are there retaining walls on the property? Retaining walls can be expensive to repair if they have issues, especially if they're over 4 feet tall, because in the city of Chattanooga, a retaining wall that's over 4 feet tall is supposed to have an engineer, design it and design all the plans for it if you would need to do repairs or replacement of it. Now, if a retaining wall is shorter than 4 feet tall, it's not as much of a concern, but just as a little fact, when we do get onto some of those hilly lots, we're looking at how's the water flowing, and what retaining wall issues are we going to consider. And the average rainfall in Chattanooga is 55 inches in a year. So that gives you some idea of what we're getting and why it's a consideration on hilly areas. Now, speaking of rainfall, let's talk about weather considerations. We don't really have a lot of winter to consider. So when you're looking at, steeper lots or you're thinking about a driveway or hilly access, January is our coldest month, and that has an average high of 50 degrees and an average low of 33 degrees. So we're really not spending a ton of time below freezing here. And the average snowfall in the Chattanooga area is 3.6 inches a year, according to weather.gov. So we're not a place where you have to consider that winter snow or anything like that, really. So we do want to consider some summer heat, and humidity is something we talk about a lot in home inspections, but snow, not so much. Freezing pipes, again, not so much. HOAs. Clients ask me about HOAs a lot, and there are some newer subdivisions that have HOAs, but overall they're not incredibly common here, especially if you're used to the Northern Virginia, Mid-Atlantic area outside of DC where HOAs are everywhere. It's totally different here. They are more the exception than the norm. With about 45 houses closed or under contract so far this year, I've had one of those be in an HOA, and that was an optional, a voluntary HOA. Okay, two are in like voluntary HOA slash like pool clubs, but they're not, like I said, you can see they're just not as common as they are in some other areas. And especially when you're looking at houses as an investment property, again, you're not likely to be looking in the neighborhoods where we do have HOAs. So this was a little intro of, real estate differences between Chattanooga and other areas. We talked about the architecture here, how houses are constructed, what topography we have, how you have to think about weather and specifically snow, and then finally HOAs. I hope this was a helpful introduction to the real estate in the Chattanooga market. If you have any other questions, please reach out, post your comments below, and anything that was unusual to you. I'd love to hear, if you're an out-of-state buyer in Chattanooga, what was different for you than what you're used to. Thank you so much. Adrienne Green here, and I hope you have a great day.